Love podcasts, hate nonsense. It is the PoliticsJOE podcast.
Eduardo.
Eva. Prime Minister's...
Maybe more like Eva.
Eva?
Yeah.
Is that how Italians speak?
Oh, I was doing Spanish.
Oh. That's something that never occurred to me, that your name might be Spanish.
It's not.
Right. So what was the point of that?
Well, if I'd said Eduardo, you would say Eva.
Right. Okay, let's try that again. Wheel up.
Eduardo.
Eva.
No, a B on the V.
Eva, welcome to PoliticsJOE. We're going to be reacting to Prime Minister's questions.
With me, Javier Milei.
And me, the ghost of General Franco.
El zorro de mierda.
Do we think General Franco would like Keir Starmer?
Do I think well, I don't know. What would he be offering tickets to? Ooh.
Very, very droll. That's like, what was the Tory line last week about fire and rehire? That just wasn't really a joke.
That was that in PMQs?
It was something. It was about Sue Gray. They kept making Tories.
Oh, Kemi Badenoch, yeah.
Tories kept making a joke about. I thought they didn't like fire and rehire.
Yeah. Do you know?
But it didn't actually apply to that situation.
Do you know that I keep forgetting his name? I don't know why. This Tory MP that I was on Politics Live with, he did the fire and rehire joke, and then I did that thing where you're like, sorry, I don't really understand the fire and rehire joke. Have they hired someone on a lesser salary while cancelling that contract? And he was like, well, no, it was quite obviously, it was just a little throwaway comment. It was a joke. And it was like...
Not based in reality.
I didn't get it.
It's a bad joke, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
It's a bad joke. We get called out on them.
He was there. He was an interesting guy that. He also was like, I don't know how many of you around the table have run a business, but I actually came from private equity. And I right. Like,
cool. Now you're in charge?
Yeah.
Sick.
It was like... I didn't really know what point he was trying to make there. Because if you were in private equity, you didn't run a business, did you? You spent their money.
No, you did. Someone said to me once that they only think people who've run businesses should be in charge of the country.
I kind of get that. I think that you should have business heads in the Treasury, yeah.
But it's a completely different aim. Like, Britain isn't aiming to make a profit.
No. Oh, we all played the FT game yesterday, didn't we?
Oh, yeah. The
We
FT have released a game where you basically pretend to be the Chancellor and make some tough decisions to see if you can stay within their fiscal rules.
How did you do?
I think I ended up with a deficit of £60 billion.
I had no deficit. And I had headroom.
Did you?
I did, yeah.
Congrats.
I think I had like 20 billion of headroom. And you know how I did it?
How did you do that?
I took our defence spend down to 1.5%,
right,
which is in line with Germany, while putting up our foreign aid, and then I put up capital gains.
I put up our foreign aid and our defence.
Oh, and I kept the I got rid of the triple lock.
Gosh.
Yeah.
If only you were Chancellor.
Also, I thought I actually don't think people. Oh yeah, and I got rid of the national insurance. I brought that back, penny back. You know, the what Rishi Sunak took away. Because I think the average worker would probably pay 900 quid a year. They don't really mind if they could actually go to the doctor or their kid could get an education.
I suppose the whole thing is dependent on that, isn't it? That's the thing they've got to try and balance. I suppose that just sums up Labour's gamble. If life does not improve for the average person quite quickly, they're going to lose support even more than they already had.
Someone on the team
Yep.
kept the triple lock and did not go for free school meals.
This same person revealed that they want to sentence paedophiles to death.
Do they? They want to sentence paedophiles to death?
Yeah, they want the death penalty for paedophiles.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that true?
That is true.
They're nodding.
Oh gosh, I wonder who that was.
I've told this story before, but there was once a Tory MP in a green room that I was in, and I said, I was semi-joking. I said, you know something? I think if you lot ran on a pledge to murder all paedophiles, I think that would be a real vote winner. And I'm not joking. He went on the programme and he was like, look, capital punishment for paedophiles, it wouldn't be that terrible, would it? And I was still in the green room with his advisor, and his advisor was sitting there like, no, why did you listen to her?
Should we react to some real politics now?
Oh, sure.
Roll the clip.
Now, the last government also established a new system of registration and monitoring to protect the UK from interference from foreign states, including China, Russia and Iran. Called the Foreign Influence Registration Scheme, it was described as essential by MI5 in the fight to help keep Britain safe. But since the Prime Minister took office, he has halted its implementation. Why?
That isn't correct.
Rishi, Sunak. Yeah, well, Mr. Speaker, that is very clearly what the government has said. And only last week he said at the dispatch box that he would give the security forces the powers they need. And if he is going to fulfil that promise, I would urge him to get up to speed on this issue and therefore implement the scheme. Furthermore, Parliament's Intelligence and Security Committee have warned that British universities are increasingly a rich feeding ground for China to exert political influence over us. That's why we passed the Freedom of Speech Act with new powers to help defend universities from this threat, but the new Education Secretary has since blocked it. So can the Prime Minister tell us how, without this tool, the government will prevent Chinese influence over our universities?
I really don't think party political points on security and intelligence. Honestly, throughout the last Parliament, we stood with the government on all questions of security and intelligence because it was important to the outside world that we did so. I worked with the security and intelligence services for 5 years prosecuting cases. I know firsthand the work that they do as a lawyer. I've known firsthand the work they do as the Prime Minister. We support them in everything that we do, and he knows that.
I thought this was an interesting approach from Rishi Sunak at Prime Minister's questions.
Okay, that's a good way of saying that was dull.
Oh no, it's obviously important. But given you might want to just give Starmer a kicking a little bit.
That isn't correct.
That isn't correct. But he could have even asked him about the Taylor Swift stuff or the upcoming budget or winter fuel or anything. But he's gone on China. Obviously very important issues. But it's interesting that he doesn't want to, that he doesn't think there should be a bit of niggle.
The Taylor Swift stuff is interesting because it does seem odd that the Home Office would get involved with a decision by the Met. Mm-hmm. But when you actually lay it out and you think, okay, there was a terror attack, if Taylor Swift's team are saying we're not going to perform here unless you give us the royal escort, the Met escort, I can understand from an economy perspective. Yeah, you would grant that. Can you imagine if all of those people who had paid for hotels, tickets, I mean, hundreds of thousands of people went to those strings of concerts. If they cancelled it, the headline would be Yvette Cooper too lazy to pick up phone to Met. But then the extreme of this is like Margaret Thatcher and the paramilitaries.
Do you think what we're looking at is the end result of the SEOification of news? In that Taylor Swift is one of the most important, famous people in the world.
Yeah.
Any news line about her will pick up, and get views by millions and millions of people. Yeah,
because all the fans sort of hate comment on it, hate read it. Yeah. I suppose. I think I had another thought about it. I can't remember what it was. I do think it's odd, the pursuit of the story, because it does seem very rational. But then I think that the argument, which I can get behind, is the lack of transparency around it. Because obviously it wasn't even declared because the ticket value, Yvette Cooper's ticket value, didn't actually hit the limit of where you have to declare. So it wasn't on a public register.
She was also the guest of Ed Balls as well.
She was the guest of Ed Balls. But I think that it's probably the lack of transparency, and this was the frustration at the end of the last Tory administration. Actually, no, it was the frustration of the Partygate era, when Boris Johnson his spokesperson was actually outright lying to the lobby. And I think that's the annoyance. It's, this government promised it was going to be transparent, the antidote to the Conservative Party, and they're concealing information. I think that's probably the interest. Does that make sense?
No, it does. It does. I'm just not convinced it deserves the level of attention that it is.
No, I think
Guessing.
I think that the argument for her having the Met Escort is really obvious. But you aren't meant to override a Met decision. You're not.
Mm-hmm.
But then you wonder if it was, I don't know, maybe if it was like
AC/DC.
Oasis next year and there'd been a terror threat. We are in the shadows still of the Manchester Arena bombing.
Oh, and also there was a terror threat was it in Vienna?
That's
before.
what I mean. That's what I mean. That's what justifies it.
Yeah, definitely. It's not beyond the realms of possibility that someone as high profile as Taylor Swift might require more security.
Yeah. I think that there's also sort of like this irritation around Taylor Swift that a lot of people have where they sort of go, God, they love to hate her, which is fine. But it's almost like that's probably what spurns it on. It's like, oh, God, that silly little girl. Why does she need a Met Escort? Mm-hmm. It's probably something to do with that, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. So in lieu of asking about that...
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Sunak was concentrating on the UK's relationship with China, and what he said was a decision by the government to halt the implementation of a foreign influence registration scheme where anyone in the UK acting for a foreign entity would have to declare their activities. And there would be 2 tiers to this scheme, and the more enhanced scheme, if China were to be on it, universities' relationships with China would have to declare all their employees' activities, and so would places like HSBC. And Sunak says that's been halted. Starmer says that's incorrect. In an incredibly the shortest PMQs answer ever, perhaps.
He said that no, I've seen one before where they've just said yes. I think it may even have been Starmer, but possibly, or someone on the front bench. That this is all wrapped up into the free speech on university campuses argument, where there's this sort of right-wing, almost national conservatism conspiracy that China are pushing. God, sorry, just give me a second. China are pushing a pro-trans agenda in our universities, and it's hindering freedom of speech.
Well, you saw they were milking those men.
They were milking those men.
And now they're making them trans.
Jordan Peterson tried to tell us they're milking your men.
Men are being shipped to China for news and coming back women.
Yeah. Yeah. They were sucked so dry, they became women.
That's the key difference between a man and what is a woman? Someone who's been sucked dry.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the key difference.
Yeah, I'm like the Sahara.
Whereas I'm like the Atlantic Ocean.
This is such a weird pivot, but I just have to say that there's this like dating app that you're not meant to say who you've seen on there. But I saw John Mayer on it this morning.
Really?
Yeah.
John Mayer?
Yeah.
Why?
My sister was like, did you match? I was like, no, obviously not.
So, just to see what's that'd be cool.
Well, I'll let you know.
Yeah. What if John would like to come on the podcast?
Yeah.
Invite him on, see if you fancy it.
Hey, John. John Mayer had one good album, and it's the Continuum live album where Pino Palladino's on it.
I've never heard it. I might have never heard a John Mayer song.
There's like they do like, yeah, it's actually, that's a really good album. The rest of them are a bit
knee.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Your body is a wonderland.
Oh, is that John Mayer?
Yeah.
Oh, I've heard that song. Okay. That is a bit bleh. Starmer was peeved by Sunak's questioning.
Sorry, I keep really derailing this.
You do. Everyone in the audience, please take a note. And my sincere efforts to keep this on the rails.
Well, I had a few beers last night, and my jaw's really tense because as I was explaining to Sean this morning, I said whenever I drink beer, I grit my teeth when I sleep.
And that pertains to Starmer's reaction to Sunak's question.
Man, like I get it.
Yeah, you get it because you're annoyed.
That's why he wanted to do short and sweet answers, because he also had a couple
had a banging hangover.
No. He had a couple of brewskis and a couple of brew dogs.
It is annoying as you get older how alcohol affects you more or worse.
Anyway, more insights like that coming up.
Alcohol makes you feel bad. Yeah, he was grandstanding Starmer, slagging off Sunak for not just getting behind the British flag.
Yeah, it was like, I don't think party political points on security are good.
Yeah, what do you think? Why do you think Sunak avoided these things?
Avoided what?
Avoided trying to wound Starmer on a meaner point, perhaps.
Gosh, it's a hard one, isn't it? I actually think that he probably thought this was a mean point.
Yeah.
I think that he probably thought, I'm going to get him where it hurts, MI5.
Yes. Something that he does as well, Starmer does this all the time. He's like, I personally know the experience of, I worked with MI5 when I was DPP. I don't think he can answer a question without talking about himself.
There's also, well, that leads you into another comment, another person who does that.
Who?
Oh, anyway. I thought you were going to bring up the Jeremy Corbyn, Alex Salmond tribute.
No, it wasn't actually. But similar, I suppose. But anything, like, Starmer seemed to think that his appeal to people is that, like, it's him personally. As if he believes that only I have the answers in government because my unique experience, as if he's, like, a particularly attractive proposition. It's never about, like, us and, like, the country. It's, I have this experience because my sister's a nurse. No, mum was a nurse. Father was a toolmaker. Brother had some sort of special needs provision.
His granddad was torpedoed in the Falklands.
Yeah. Oh, like, you can't just meet... His uncle.
Sorry, his uncle.
His uncle personally sank the Belgrano. And you can't just, like, govern based on your own personal... What about all the areas that he has no personal experience of? Do they just not matter?
Yeah, no, they don't.
It's quite... I actually think it's quite, like, a grating thing about him.
But he's also... What's annoying is he does the thing that the Tories used to do. Do you know when the Tories used to be like, we've got inflation down? And you go, well, because you put it up. It's sort of like... When he was DPP, he only did very good things. Like he did, but
no fail,
none of
misses.
There was never miss, not me.
Rare miss, king.
Yeah. Do you remember the Jimmy Savile stuff?
Yes. What about it?
It's just, that was such a crazy time in politics.
Oh, when Johnson was accusing Starmer of enabling
Jimmy, don't mean anything to you, Keir. Jimmy.
Rare miss, king.
Yeah.
Rare miss, king.
Yeah.
Shall we have another clip?
I actually worked with the BBC. My children watch the BBC all the time.
Do more. That's great. That's so good.
Someone's going to comment saying, sycophantic. This podcast used to be something. This podcast was always this.
Yes, our podcast has always been nothing.
Yeah.
So if you listen to the first episode, it's quite sweet how much we're trying to be, like, proper about it.
Really?
Yeah. We're trying to give some, like, proper analysis, and we've, like, scripted some bits.
Oh.
And now we're like, Bleh!
It's like when Laura comes on the podcast and me and you sit there like, okay.
Yeah, because she, like, reads her notes. Some sort of
Horrible.
Teacher's
Actually,
pets.
do you know, while we're laying into Laura, you've got the fucking typos on here, pal. Palestine, apparently, and you've caps locked China.
Like Donald Trump.
Yeah, China. Oh my God, what a bloke yesterday. Did you see him? Did you see him at the rally? Did you see him at the drive? No, he wasn't doing that. He stood up and he stood and he pledged the oath to Sinead O'Connor. Or what was her Arabic name? What was it? Shakada.
Shakada.
Yeah. He stood up and he stayed on stage and he listened to the entirety of Nothing Compares to You. Yeah.
With his hand over his heart.
Well, he did it because, do you know what? Okay, so what it was highs and lows of it, because basically, so he did that, right, which would obviously upset the Catholics, but he's like, you did enough to her when she was alive, all right? And then, to win back the Italian Americans, he stood there while Andrea Bocelli's...
Time to say goodbye.
Yes, played in full. Played in full. Just like it did at my nonna's funeral.
What a great playlist.
I was crying to it, and Sean was filming and laughing at me, and I was like, oh, it was my nonna's funeral song, actually.
Remember the other day when you and Sean didn't get a joke on Have I Got News For You? Between you. There was a point in the office the other day where you were watching a clip from Have I Got News For You. It's like a 15-second clip, and between the two of you, you couldn't work out what the joke was. You're both two very intelligent people. But
what was it? So Hislop said...
Hislop, they were doing a bit with when Amal Rajan was presenting it, and they did a bit as if it was from University Challenge, and Ian Hislop buzzes in and goes, "Maudlin Hislop," like they do on University Challenge. And then Paul Merton goes, "Cheerful."
No, Merton, slightly more cheerful.
Yes, that was it.
I still don't get it. I still don't get it at all.
The maudlin just means sad.
But you're the Cambridge applicant, so...
I'm a proud Cambridge applicant, actually. Do you know what's nuts? How much Oxford University is in the news. People are obsessed with it.
It's like, let it go, man.
Yeah, you didn't get in. Chill. No, I find it very strange.
William Hague was writing about it today.
Yeah, because there's 38 people who want to be Chancellor of Oxford University.
What's the list?
I don't know. Should we do that at the end?
What?
Should we come back to
No,
that?
they want to know who is running for Oxford.
Welcome to Oxford University, Joe.
Candidates running for University of Oxford Chancellor. Open that up. Imran Khan is out of Oxford Chancellor race.
Oh, he was my outside pick.
Was he? Jemima Khan was mine. Okay. I'm only going to read the people I know because otherwise, what's the point? Right. Yet to find someone I know. I don't know any of these people. Oh, William Hague. Dominic Grieve is running. Peter Mandelson. Oh my gosh, I forgot he was running, wasn't he? I don't know anyone else. David Willits.
Who's David Willits?
Well, he won't. He's Tory, but he won't.
Won't get it.
I mean, you didn't even know who he was. On name recognition. Alistair Bruce. Who would you like to be? If you could have anyone be the Oxford Chancellor, who would it be?
If I could have anyone?
You can have anyone in the world, who would it be?
I just... what about one of the boys from Blue?
What do you think that they would bring to the university?
Well, the Blue, like Oxford Blues, and that'd be good. They could perform. They could write a song. All four of them should do it.
How do you think that song would go?
How do I think the song should go?
Yeah.
Probably quite comparable to one of their many hits. They just rewrite the words, I think. Shall we talk about PMQs?
All right.
Yeah.
Should we roll another clip?
Yes, please. Can we roll a clip, please? Thank you, editor.
Can you play that fucking clip already? Where is it? Roll the clip. I don't think it's working.
I think it's worked.
It's not working.
Israeli Finance Minister Smotrich had said that starving 2 million people in Gaza might be justified and moral. National Security Minister Ben-Gvir called settlers who killed a 19-year-old on the West Bank heroes. After my visit to Israel and Palestine last February, having witnessed the damage that these extremist ministers in the Netanyahu government are doing, I called on the last government to sanction them. The last government refused, but we now learn that the former Foreign Secretary was considering this. So will the Prime Minister now sanction ministers Ben-Gvir and Smotrich?
We are looking at that because they're obviously abhorrent comments, as he rightly says, along with other really concerning activity in the West Bank, but also across the region. The humanitarian situation in Gaza is dire. The death toll has surpassed 42,000, and access to basic services is becoming much harder. And Israel must take all possible steps to avoid civilian casualties, to allow aid into Gaza in much greater volume, and provide the UN and humanitarian partners the ability to operate effectively. Mr. Speaker, along with France, the UK will convene an urgent meeting of the UN Security Council to address this.
So after David Cameron revealed he was looking at sanctioning two of the far-right members of the Israel government, Ed Davey is asking if the UK government are looking at that now and Starmer has confirmed that they are. It'd be unprecedented to bring sanctions on an ally.
There was an early day motion that was laid yesterday by a group of nearly 50 MPs that was calling for sanctions on Israel. There's an interview with one of those MPs on the PoliticsJOE channel if you'd like to go and watch it.
You should go and check that out afterwards. Interesting, Smotrich has said that Damascus would be part of a greater Israel. So these people are absolutely just loopy, greater Israel supremacist, I suppose. It's interesting that...
Where do you think Trump will fall on that?
On giving Damascus to Israel?
Yeah.
I think even he would draw a line.
Because he moved the embassy.
Yeah, but that's within the boundaries of Israel, I guess.
Like, people are saying he's going to give Russia the Crimea.
Yeah. Yeah, but they can't, like... Damascus is in Syria.
But look...
Well, I suppose it could happen. It could happen.
You just wonder, don't you?
No, you do. You do. It's interesting that...
Thank you for letting me know that Damascus was in Syria.
I know you struggle with geography.
I actually seem to remember it being in Israel.
I'm a scholar of the Middle East.
Should I do that line? If Ollie was here, he'd probably do that line from 1984, wouldn't he?
Which one?
What was it? Someone was always at war with...
Eurasia was at war with Oceania until it wasn't.
No, it always was.
Oh. I know. I'm actually a scholar of 1984 as well. I'm an Orwellian. I wonder if / when there will be a push to sanction other members of the Israeli government, given the atrocities that are being committed.
Well, I mean, they just set a hospital on fire.
Mm-hmm. And have killed thousands of people in Lebanon and Gaza. So at what point, if war crimes are being committed so regularly and being condemned by the UN, is there going to be a push within Parliament? You'd think there would eventually be a push within Parliament to sanction other members of the Israeli government. Like, these people deserve to be sanctioned, but do other people complicit in these crimes? No.
There's a school of thought, isn't there, that doesn't really matter if the UK sanctions or not because the US aren't, so it doesn't really matter. But, yeah. I mean, the argument there would be, if it doesn't really matter, maybe just do it.
Yeah, or why do anything?
Is
the converse.
Why do anything if America doesn't?
Yeah, and also as well, I think...
Kamala Harris will be a lot worse for this conflict than Trump will be. That's going to get me some heat, isn't it?
Why do you say that?
Well, I mean, look at the Biden policies on Israel-Gaza since this leg of the conflict began. Nothing has... I mean, a hospital was literally set on fire 2 days ago. People burned in their beds. At least Trump was of the school of Corbyn thought, which was like, I chatted to them in Tehran.
I wonder...
Couple of good guys.
It is tough for Harris to be sort of like a fresh voice when she's literally the vice president. She probably has some say. Her voice. She's the vice president. She's going
to have a radical Gaza plan, is she?
No, but exactly. As in, like, it's the difference between the packaging and what she's actually doing. In that she's supposed to be like this new voice of change, but this is happening on her watch. She's part of the executive of the United States of America.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, okay, yeah, I got you. I thought you meant like, well, she can't really say anything now, and I'm like, she probably could. Yeah.
My point is exactly she could.
Yeah.
And as the images are freaking horrific and startling, and everyone's seeing them, and they're making everyone feel sick.
But the strangest thing is that there was like a containment, wasn't there, on what you couldn't see in Gaza for so long. Mm-hmm. Now you're looking at it barefaced. You don't even, there's the argument of Israel won't let journalists in there, so we don't really know what's going on. Mm-hmm. That hospital being on fire, that was enough. I think we're pretty aware of what's going on in there.
Yeah.
Christ. It is shocking, isn't it?
It is.
I wonder where David Lammy sits in all of this, because David Lammy was a staunch Palestinian activist, right? He's been doing it for years. His local constituency Labour Party as well are, it's Tottenham, they are they've been on this conflict, activists in that area for the last decade, I would say. And he's selected as a candidate because he's seen as someone who is, in part, a pro-Palestinian voice in Parliament. I'm not saying that's the only reason that they chose him as a candidate, but that does come into the conversation, right? Do you think that he's comfortable with I think he's sort of within constraints, because I think if that were up to him, I think he would have suspended all arms licenses if that were up to him, especially if you listen to some of his speeches from a couple of years ago. Even if you listen to the ones at Labour conference from maybe year before last.
Yeah.
No, even the one last year, actually. Maybe I'll dig that out and put it on the YouTube for people to watch.
It's interesting how I think previously a lot of commentators would say that people condemning Israel in this way are part of sort of like the crank left. But now it's Ed Davey. Like these arguments are becoming more and more into the mainstream.
Centre ground, you mean?
Centre ground. It's becoming just like commonly held opinion. And I wonder how long the government is prepared to ignore that for.
I saw a video of a girl ripping down these Greek flags.
Greek flags?
A flag of Greece. She was ripping them down off a restaurant and was like, "That's a genocide."
Did you think they were Israeli flags?
Maybe she knows about something in Greece that we don't know about.
Shall we have another clip?
Go on.
As evidenced by some earlier questions, issues surrounding SEND, local government finance and adult social care are issues which affect all of our constituents. And let's be honest, Mr. Speaker, for too long, both parties have ducked and dodged taking the difficult but necessary decisions. In order to give certainty to our constituents and confidence to those who provide those vital services, does the Prime Minister share my assessment that there is considerable merit in formal cross-party working on these issues, where we can share taking those difficult decisions in order to improve outcomes for our constituents?
Well, I am grateful to him for raising this question about SEND, because it is a really important issue, and I think this is the fourth time in two Prime Minister's questions where it's been raised on both sides of the House. I quibble with his suggestion it's both parties, since his party was in power for 14 years. But the spirit in which he puts this forward, that this should be cross-party, is something that we should take up, because it's such an important issue. It affects so many children and parents, and therefore, notwithstanding the quibble, I'm very happy to work across the House on an issue as important as this.
Simon Hoare.
Simon Hoare.
You whore.
What an odd name.
Hoare?
It's actually pronounced Hoare.
Hoare. They probably think that about you.
But who?
Simon Hoare probably thinks Eduardo Campbell.
When he's on politics, Simon Hoare.
Simon.
I enjoyed his assessment that both parties have ducked and dodged taking the difficult but necessary decisions, when in the past 14 years, one party was doing a lot of the heavy lifting and ducking these decisions, and the others less so.
For visual viewers of this podcast, I would just like you to rewind slightly and just take note of whoever was vision mixing today in the House of Commons chamber. Parliament TV, you did a number on that.
Really?
Oh, God. When he was talking about Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, someone got a camera on Bridget Phillipson. If you go back and have a little look at that, because you don't often get
a reaction shot.
Sometimes you get someone doing the vision mixing, and I'm pretty sure it's Phil and he's on lunch, because you're not even looking at the right person. Yeah. Oh, today we were all over it. We were getting reaction shots. It was like being in Big Brother.
Do you know, I love when they get a new angle.
Yeah.
I enjoy an over-the-shoulder shot.
Wake up, King. New
Parliament Live TV thing has just dropped.
New crevice of the chamber revealed.
I think I'd quite enjoy being the vision mixer for Parliament TV. I like placing the cameras at interesting angles.
Yeah, is that something that you'd like?
I think so. I think it'd be good fun.
We should go to it. Why don't we go to it live next week and then do this?
Yeah.
Then you can have a really good look.
Would I get to vision mix it?
I don't know if you'd get to vision mix it, because we would be just watching.
It is funny as well how recent cameras in the chamber is.
Yeah.
Because did you see when they were talking about Alex Salmond's legacy, when he interrupted the budget, I think it was in 1988, they only had audio because they didn't have cameras in it.
Yeah, but that's because the cameras were presumably a lot larger and they needed to be operated, right?
Yeah, but they could still have like one or two.
No, because where would you put it? When we go and have a look at it, you'll realise how small it is.
No, I know, but well...
But like, if you've got like a big like, what are those things called that are in Doctor Who? Dalek. That's like the size of what the cameras were.
They were the size of a Dalek?
Yeah, that is actually exactly it. Thank you.
Daleks are quite big.
That's what I'm saying, the cameras were big.
They were as big as Daleks.
Inch.
There was cameras as big as Daleks.
It's because cameras used to be a human job. So someone would... What do you mean? So someone would just open their eyes, ingest it all, and then they'd go back and then they'd redo what they just saw with claymation. And that was happening way into the late 80s.
Yeah. That's why the BBC's budget was so high. Spending it on Play-Doh.
But you see, that was what was tricky because people would be in televisions as well because they'd have to reenact it. There was a point in time, one television in one household could employ up to 14 people. And that's the problem with AI.
That is. I wonder, do kids think people live in their iPads?
They do.
Do they think that?
Well, they used to.
But not now?
Up until the new iPad Pro.
What happened then?
AI.
AI took over.
American politics is very confusing, isn't it, Chris? Rushmore. American politics, Chris, it's very confusing, isn't it?
What?
American politics, it's confusing.
Oh, yes.
But we've got a solution, don't we?
Solution.
The podcast.
Oh, the podcast.
Exactly.
The podcast. Yes, we've created a podcast called American Friction to help better explain all the confusing, upside-down, weird world of US politics, from crowd sizes to conspiracy theories.
That's American Friction with me, Jacob Jarvis.
US troops.
That's American Friction with me, Jacob Jarvis.
That's right, and me, Chris Jones, and our friend Nikki McCann Ramirez, out every Friday.
Wherever you get your podcasts.
There's 2 George Bushes.
Idiot.
I can't believe how much heat I got for not knowing what a Beyblade is.
Yeah, I think that's quite remarkable.
It was...
Do you know what Yu-Gi-Oh is?
I mean, I wouldn't be able to identify if you showed me a character, but like if you showed me something that said Yu-Gi-Oh on it, I'd know it was that.
Okay, that's an interesting blind spot for you.
But why would I have been doing any of those things?
But you just like...
I know what Pokemon is.
Yeah.
I liked Pokemon.
Yeah. What about like Crazy Bones?
Yeah.
Okay. Beyblade just seems to be a blind spot for you for some reason. I don't know why.
Maybe they were banned in my school or something.
Yeah, but just to have like that much of a cultural blind spot is very curious.
Yeah, but I don't have
There's a group in
brothers.
There's a group in Bedford who meet up and Beyblade underneath a bridge.
Do you know something? I knew about this, but I thought Beyblading...
Was dogging.
I thought it was kind of like rollerblading.
No.
But on a blade or something. I don't know.
Like a like a ripstick or something.
What's that?
Do you remember those? They were like, it's kind of like a skateboard but on 2 wheels, and you'd move your back leg like that to generate power.
Yeah. Who do you think would be the best skateboarder in Parliament right now?
Sam Garling. As the youngest guy, the coolest dude in Parliament.
Famously, yeah.
Who's the coolest dude in Parliament?
The Fence did this, didn't they?
Who's the
hardest
coolest?
man in Parliament. Do you want to hear something really funny? I totally misunderstood that brief when they were asking us who do you think the hardest man in Parliament was. You know, they went around asking.
Oh, yeah.
I thought they meant like...
Did you not say Stephen Flynn?
What's like the toughest piece of legislation that someone's put through?
Who's fought the hardest battle to get
I actually think that's why. And I sent Roshi... Oh.
You can say Roshin.
Oh, yeah, I can. Sorry.
Yeah.
I sent her like a whole list of like things, and then she was like, "Thanks, we're kind of looking more for like
like geezers,
yeah."
like bruisers.
And I was like, "Oh,
that's very funny." Who's the coolest dude in Parliament?
I don't know.
Is there any cool dudes?
I tell you what, who would look normal in a pub? Stephen Flynn, probably.
Stephen Flynn.
Who would look normal in a pub?
I always think it's weird when you see an MP in casual clothes, which is a shame. Because they're probably more used to that.
Like when a dog walks on its tongue.
Yeah, exactly the same as that. That is exactly the same as that. Have we got more to say about Simon Wari?
Well, we said nothing about it.
No, we didn't actually. It is just very funny that he's trying to claim that the Labour government haven't done enough on this.
Not very funny if you are a child with special educational needs or disabilities.
Yes, but you might blame the Conservative administrations more.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about teaching, I think, week to week now, but it is ludicrous that just think about it. You're like, oh, there are children who are going to need extra help and assistance at school.
We did nothing about
Cut
this
the
in
funds.
government. And we did nothing about this in government.
See, that if that person who was on our team who did that thing with
Hanging.
winter fuel,
Right.
no, not winter fuel, with the free school meals, if they'd been in charge of the budget, they would have cut that.
Yeah. They probably have cut just the NHS in general.
They probably would have, wouldn't they?
Yeah. And so,
Oh, hey, if you are out of work or on a mental health ward, you're going to get Ozempic.
I don't think that's a story, is it?
Wes Streeting. He's going to go around, a paraphrase.
I didn't think that. I think it was a lie.
Quitting my job so that Wes Streeting gives me Ozempic.
I think it's unemployed, overweight people are going to get weight loss jabs, and they're also going to be like career coaching people in mental health wards because they see the problem with people who are so mentally unwell they have to be institutionalized is that they're not economic assets. They're net drain. They're not producing.
I love when they call people economically inactive. It's
Yeah.
so rude.
Yeah, you add nothing actually. You're nothing to us. You're a negative number on this spreadsheet.
There was a little tidbit about Darren Jones the other day that he refers to his children as cost unit 1, 2 and 3.
I think it's quite funny. Do you not think that's funny?
I mean, maybe that's their names.
Cunt 1, 2 and 3.
Cunt.
Yeah, for sure.
Cost you. Oh, that's really funny.
He's, I suppose, making a point about the cost of parenting in modern Britain. Like, why aren't we having more children? Because it's so fucking expensive.
Yeah, well, he had 3, so he fulfilled his obligations, didn't he?
No, I did. He paid him, but it's just bloody expensive. Is it Finn Taylor has a joke about having any children makes you working class.
That's funny.
Because his line is he used to buy clothes at like Arcade, and now he has to spend money on his children and can't.
Yeah, I don't know how well that line travels.
No, I thought it was funny.
It's quite Kemi Badenoch, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe it was funnier when he did it.
Yeah, probably. He's a professional comedian.
I went to see Horatio Gold, one of his writers,
Yeah.
at Edinburgh Fringe, and I thought it was one of the best things I saw, actually.
Really?
It was really funny.
That's good.
Yeah.
Big endorsement.
He's a funny guy.
He is a funny guy.
Okay, so that's enough of Simone Hoare. Should we do...
I think you'll agree, listeners, we covered that. We really got into the weeds with his
Yeah.
arguments.
Yeah.
Ugh, that was an exhausting time in the marketplace of ideas there.
Yeah.
Shall we move on?
Yeah. Well, if you've made it this far, you're
Time
going to
for
love what
some-
we're about to tell you.
Which is what?
There's a way out.
If you've been listening to this thinking this is a fate worse than death, then buddy, have I got some news for you. The assisted dying bill is due to be tabled for its first reading. What's going on there?
Well, which bit do you want to talk about? The parliamentary procedure of what it is if a bill is having its first reading?
What's going on? What are they providing for?
It's entering Parliament. I should have looked at it before. Is it Kim Leadbeater's bill?
Yes.
It is. You've written that here, actually. Well done.
This is how much contempt Ava has for law.
Is that how you spell it?
No, it's not. It's how it's pronounced, though.
Okay.
It's phonetic, don't worry.
Kim Leadbeater is introducing a private member's bill today to Parliament on assisted dying. So this is a cause that's been championed by Esther Ranson, who is already booked in at Dignitas, but she can't take her family with her. Do you know that? If your family goes to Dignitas, then they get done.
For accessories to suicide.
Now, look, why don't you talk to us about, because you went and met someone, didn't you?
Yeah, I met a campaigner called George, who had a really interesting, sad story. His mother suffered from a condition that was a complication of MS, which basically meant she had just chronic pain. And the way to treat it was you're fully conscious and you get a needle injected into your brain and they find the nerve that's causing you the issue and they cauterize it. And it's seemingly the most like traumatic, violent procedure. He described it as akin to being in a car crash. That's what his mother looks like after the procedure. And she was determined that she would never go through that procedure again. So thankfully the initial procedure worked. She got relief for a few years. But the attacks started to come back, and she had said that she had looked at Dignitas, was thinking about things like that, but without telling her family. She died by suicide in January. And his point is the legislation as being discussed is extends to people who are terminally ill. I think it's going to be about people with 6 months to 12 months to live, but it doesn't cater for people living in extreme chronic pain. Won't have the right to die. His mum died on her bathroom floor alone. Whereas he would have liked
horrible, isn't it?
He would have liked her to have been surrounded by family and
not in pain.
And not in pain, and in a way that he said, ironically, she was lucky, as in these things are a gamble, a lottery, I suppose, and it worked for her. But he said no one else should be in that environment at all. But I suppose these things, that's where you get into the argument about these things being a slippery slope, where you have things like in the Netherlands and Canada, it's being extended to people with mental illness are going to be eligible for euthanasia, which isn't being talked about in the UK.
But look, I mean, who are we? Thankfully, touch wood, not in chronic pain, whether that's mental or physical. Who are we to judge? I don't really know. 6 to 12 months, if you've only got that to live, that doesn't. How is that going to help people who have? I mean, shouldn't the people? You'd want it to benefit people who've got like 10 years of chronic pain ahead of them and just think, I can't do that. Can you imagine what that poor woman was like when the pain started coming back again?
Yeah, it'd be so frightening.
It would be terrifying.
And the thought of that procedure, which is such an invasive and painful procedure, would be absolutely terrifying. And it's a tragic story that she felt compelled to do that. Opponents to this as well talk about the need for we just need to improve palliative care in this country. Well,
yeah, we probably do, but I mean that's sort of like you don't want to be in palliative care for 10 years, which some people are. You don't want to be there doing that.
Yeah.
There's the weed studies as well, isn't there?
The weed studies?
Yeah.
What are the weed studies?
Well, if you've got Parkinson's or whatever.
To alleviate the symptoms.
Yeah.
Parkinson's actually as well would not be eligible to this legislation. There's an article in the Times, and I can't remember the name of the group, but it's a group that Jeremy Paxman's in, campaigning on it. And one of the members said that they thought that you should just be able to go to the chemist and buy the euthanasia medicine. I think that's a bit liberal.
That's very liberal, but and that raises all of the family members could force you into doing it or whatever. But on the other side of that, who are we to judge? Mm-hmm. Who are we to judge? I mean, what you do with your own body and the pain that you might be in.
Something as well. I think there is a danger, perhaps, of people with severe disability eventually being compelled to engage in this. Perhaps in terms of...
Yeah, feeling like they're a burden.
Yeah, because the state doesn't treat disabled people well in this country at all.
That's what Simone Hoare was trying to raise.
Yes. Simone Hoare did that, but not on this point. But you looked at what austerity did to disabled people and disabled services in this country. Do we think that the British state, as it stands, is able to implement this in a way that isn't... Think how much they fucked up HS2, which...
Right. They couldn't get the trains running on time. And so they're not going to be able to put in the euthanasia bill.
I think that, yeah.
All right.
Well, other projects as well. Think how much they fuck up everything in this country. Like, do we think British public services are in such a good way as to handle this incredibly sensitive, dangerous, ethically dubious
Okay,
thing?
I see your HS2 and can I raise you the prisons crisis?
Yes.
When they did early release on thousands of prisoners.
They should have euthanized them.
And they didn't do... They actually didn't check them particularly well.
No.
The sensible thing to do was, okay, we're going to do early release, 40% of your sentence for thousands of current prisoners. We're going to release the ones that we think are going to be safe on the outside. And what they actually did was just went, oh, look, they're all coming up. Might as well just push them out now.
Yep.
And then they put a whole load of dangerous people out on the street, abusers. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So what I mean is, if they can't even handle releasing people from prison
Yep.
in a good way, they release people. Actually, no, but anyway, should we do a bit of rent?
Yes. Rent time. We're paying our rent.
Rent time.
Rent time.
Well, hello, renters. Are you having a nice time?
Yes.
Paying 2.5% higher for your rent than you did a year ago?
No. Boo. Is that what's happened?
Yeah. Average rent across the UK reaches a record high, according to Rightmove. Outside London, average rent is £1,344 per month, having increased 5.2% annually. Gosh.
Yeah, it's just not good.
What do they mean by average rent is £1,344? Is that for a room or for a pub?
For a property.
That can... No way.
Don't think so?
No way. Average...
For a full property?
Is that Greater London?
No, that's the rest of the country.
I'm saying outside London. I thought that was London.
No. Outside of London.
Right. As I was saying, average rent advertised for London properties also reached a new record of £2,694 per month. Now I'm with them.
Yeah, if you'd simply read a paragraph down, you'd have understood that.
Gosh, that's a lot of money, isn't it? £32,000 per annum in rent.
That's actually staggering.
Yeah. Do you know when you work out what you've actually paid a landlord over the last 10 years? Oh, let me tell you that one.
It makes you feel a bit sick.
That gives you the shivers, that.
It is. It does.
I could have bought... I could have bought my parents' first flat 5 times.
Oh, I've not done that, Matt. I probably should. I feel... Well, I think I've talked about this before, but it's interesting that I've been luckily insulated from the rent crisis by a series of extremely lucky rents, including a fully illegal property.
What was your fully illegal property?
The one I currently live in.
Why is it fully illegal?
Because I've not signed a contract. I pay my landlord a third of my rent in cash every 3 months.
Right.
It's dodgy, but...
You have to go to the cash machine and get it out?
Yeah.
That's really stressful.
Multiple trips.
Oh, you got a limit. Oh, you have to do it, spread it over a couple of days.
I'm doing that's this week's stat.
Why don't you go to the bank? They'll give you the full amount.
Because I can't be arsed.
But you'd rather walk to the cash point over 3 different 24-hour periods?
Yeah.
What?
I think it's actually 4. I need to do it 4 days this week.
If you ever go up for review, like if you ever go and apply for like an I visa or whatever, the American government are going to think that you're a drug dealer.
Well, I will say I'm not. I'll say actually I was party to a criminal lease, actually.
I suppose I lived illegally at one point.
Yeah?
Yeah. Well, I lived in a live work.
Oh, God, really?
Yeah, you're not meant to do that, are you?
Oofed.
But it's not my fault.
No, but it still seems grim.
Why do you mean it's the landlord's fault?
Someone I know told me about a guardianship in South London, which is in an old police station. And one of the guardians quite regularly stands on like the window ledge on one of the stories and just pisses out the window. And people don't know that it's not an operative police station. So they ring like the police station saying, I've just seen one of your officers peeing out the window.
Wow. I wonder where that is.
I'll tell you afterwards.
Okay. I live next door to a guardianship.
Yeah.
Used to be a Pilates studio.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it would have been really nice if it was still a Pilates studio.
That would be good. It's interesting into like guardianships. So
Oh my gosh, look at that. And Roshan's just texted our Pilates group chat. It's all happening,
it is
isn't
all
it?
happening. Guardianships are kind of proposed as a solution to the housing crisis. And it's basically where, in return for quite cheap rent, you act as kind of permanent security for disused buildings. And it's not a simple like residential tenancy. You have duties. You don't have the security as like an actual lease, but you live in like mad places like a hospital or like a primary school and stuff like that. But also you might
You do kind of have a lease. You have like an agreement.
but you don't have the security of like a regular, the protections of a normal tenancy.
I'm going to shock you.
Yeah.
Even in a normal tenancy, you actually don't have very many protections.
No, but you've got even fewer in a guardianship.
Yeah.
And
No, because you could get kicked out of your property with 2 months' notice, no matter where you are, even if
I
you
think the
signed it.
guardianship is like a week.
Yeah, but you could just move on to the next guardianship.
Yeah, but then you still have to live in a fucking hospital. Like I don't think that's something we should aspire to. I don't think people should have to live in hospitals. People should live in houses and flats.
Yeah, but it's kind of cool.
It's not cool.
Okay, hang on. There's two different things here.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, obviously no one should have to live in an abandoned hospital.
Yes.
Because the rent is too high. Yeah, I obviously take your point there. But on the other side of it, kind of cool if you get to live in a hospital.
Spooky.
Spooky.
I mean, I went to guardianship and I was like, it just feels like you live in... It was in an old administrative office. And I was like, wow, it's like you're living in an administrative office. It's not comfortable in any way. There's like strip lighting. It's pretty fucking horrible. I think it's a...
Some people like that kind of bohemian lifestyle.
Also, guardianship companies are now like offering like market rates for these places.
That's when it really takes the piss. Like I get it, like when I lived in the warehouse and the amount of rent I was paying for what I got in return, which was like not having a window in my bedroom, and like it was strip lighting. I really liked it there. Like I had a really good time. But if I was paying market rate for that room, I'd be like,
yeah, to live in a fucking like primary school or a jail or something.
Also, just the idea of it being kind of like, because what is that? The company's called like Guardians, isn't
There's
it?
lots of different ones.
We should have a look on there and see what they're offering.
It's fucking like they give me the fear. It's also like acting as if there's some sort of solution to the housing crisis, but I think they're exploiting desperate people who want to move to London.
Yes and no.
No.
Yes and no, because some people actually do want to live like that. It's like the 0 hours contract argument, right? Which is like when employers decided that was actually a much better deal for them to only offer them, that was bad because it exploited the worker, right? So if you then got a situation where guardianships are offered as like the basic entry level renting property, and they're held to the same, they're holding the tenant to the same standard as a normal tenant, right? As on the private rental sector.
Yeah.
That's when it would become outrageous.
Yeah, because the initial ones were some sort of quid pro quo.
Yeah.
There was an initial quid pro quo where, in return for cheap rent and a kind of shitty place to live, that's what you got on the tenant's behalf, and the guardian got like a permanent security. But now, the guardianship gets like permanent security staff, and they're paid for the privilege to the tune of like almost $1,000 a month. It's pretty extraordinary.
I think, yeah, but again, it depends. It depends what you're doing with it, because I think like the guys who I live next door to are genuinely really happy in there. It's like it's actually quite pleasant, and they like it, and they each pay 400 quid each. That's really reasonable because it means
but in other places you get like a 4-bedroom house for that.
Yeah, but not in London.
No, I know, but I think that's a
And that's
lot
in like
of money.
central London. You get to have a room for 400 quid a month. I think that's a really good deal.
But it's not a room. As in, like, I think.
Yeah, but it is a room.
There should be some. I think there should be more of a give on the side of the guardianship companies to those people. Like £400 is still quite a lot of money, and these people very often are not high earners at all.
They're artistes.
They're artistes, and that's why they end up in these environments.
Yeah, I mean, I if you were paying, should we actually just see how much they charge?
A guardianship.
Yeah. Why is this not as easy as I thought it would be to look up?
To look up the price of guardianship. Shall we come back to that on Monday?
Nah, let's do it now.
Should we do some homework?
We can cut out the bit where we're faffing about.
Okay.
Guardianships, rent, London. Maybe we should just do a whole video on this. Your finances. You have to tell them. Oh my God. You have to give them so much information.
You also have like odd provisions that you can't leave the property for like more than a week.
Can you not?
No.
Oh, because you're technically
Because you're security. And you can't have like large gatherings and stuff like that. There's real impositions on your right to quiet enjoyment. You don't even have the right to quiet enjoyment.
What do you mean quiet enjoyment?
That's a right you have in a tenancy. As a tenant in your flat, you have the right to quiet enjoyment of your property that the landlord can't infringe on.
I've never quietly enjoyed my flat.
Just loudly. Loudly hated.
I mean, why can't it give us like a ballpark of how much these things are? Okay, wait. Hackney, should we pick that one?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, it looks great.
What's the building?
Maybe I want to do this.
What's the building?
God, you have to give them like... It's not like letting you see the buildings and stuff. Maybe we should do this. Maybe we should do like a whole video on it.
Oh, why they're a
Drop
scam.
a comment if you'd be interested in a video from us about Guardians.
Yes, and other ideas.
Okay.
Sometimes their ideas are very good, sometimes they're not.
Sometimes they suck.
Sometimes they suck. Thank you everyone for listening to the Politics Show podcast
I
today.
thought we were cutting off way earlier than this, but okay.
We'll be back next Monday. I hope you have a lovely rest of your week.
Cool.
Bye-bye.
Bye.